It started with a quiet northern sky, maple leaves and alibis. 4 fools with guns and a getaway plan rolled into town like a death-bound van. A scream rang out, then a shot in the street. One good man fell at a deputy's feet, and the silence cracked like a judge's gavel. Now there's blood on the road and boots full of gravel. Oh, the peacekeepers are gone, just shadows on the lawn. One badge down and the laws losing sleep, while the killers run and secrets creep. In a town where truth don't shine, there's blood in the pine. Holton's chasing ghosts and lies in a town dressed up in a Sunday disguise. But behind the church and the diner glass are deals and devils from a darker past. The vets came down in their black tie mess, talking justice, but they couldn't care less. While the roots rot deep under rusted farms and old sin sleep in tattooed arms. Shine. There's blood in the pines. Shotguns and silence, backroom deals. Redemption dies where the cold wind steals. You think you know your neighbors' names till the masks fall off in the pouring rain. Now the peacekeepers are ghosts, just legends on the coast. One man hunts through fire and smoke, while the town pretends it never broke. In a place where justice signs get buried under blood and pines. Yeah, just a violent dream, and it ends in the pine. Always ends in the pine. From the islands where the sun meets the sea, Jason's the voice we all wanna be. Interviewing creators, making comics come alive. With every story, he helps us thrive. Jason from Hawaii, diving in deep, unveiling the stories that we wanna keep. From creators to heroes, he's got the scoop on the comics for fun and profit loops. So tune in.
Aloha, it's Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing a friend of the show, screenwriter, comic book creator, and Ringo Award winner Rylend Grant. Now, he is here to promote his latest Kickstarter, the Peacekeepers #5. Now, this campaign starts on May 12th and ends on June 5th. Now, listeners, he's been on the show several times. I just want to quickly go over his what he's done. Rylend, just jump in, add in, because like I said, I really have to I didn't put too much, but jump in and add in whatever you want. So he has written screenplays for the movie Haunted Heart and State of Consciousness. He's written a number of comic books. I'm just going to name a couple of them, and I'm going to try. One of them is Aberrant, and also Suicide Jockeys. He has he has he ran a number of successful Kickstarters campaigns. One of them is the Jump. Matter of fact, that wrapped up I think recently within the last month or two. So I
Yeah,
backed that one
about
up.
a month or two ago. Yeah, yeah.
And then also the first four issues of the Peacekeepers. Um, and Rylan, I forgot to write this down. You and David Avalone, you guys do a YouTube podcast called The Writer's Block. You know, um,
Yeah. Yeah, the Writer's Block is a Telly Award winning business of comics podcast. Where yeah, we've had guests like Kevin Eastman and Stan Sakai and Matt Fraction, and yeah, basically we just kind of we have our creator friends on and we sit around and talk shop, and usually it degenerates into us arguing over which is the best Star Trek captain or something like that, and it's always good fun. And yeah, we recently kind of relaunched the audio portion was always great. You can find that on Apple Pods or wherever you get your ear crack. But we recently sort of relaunched the video version of the podcast on our own YouTube channel, the Half Evil Comics YouTube channel. So yeah, go find that on YouTube. Go ahead and subscribe, all that stuff.
all right. No, thank you very much. Um, so I know I'm already having you start talking, right? But Rylan, how are you doing this morning?
No, I'm doing great, man. It's glad to be here and glad to be talking Peacekeepers.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, now where can listeners follow you on social media? You've already plugged the YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I am at Rylend Grant on all forms of social media. That is RYLENDGRANT. I know you guys are just listening. I always spell it because it's not a real name. My parents just kind of drunkenly arranged letters and saddled me with it. And so now I have to spell it for people. The other thing you can do is you can go and you can go to the Half Evil Comics social media. We are at Half Evil Comics on all forms of social media. There's a Half Evil YouTube channel. My primary job now that the film and television business has really slowed down is I am the publisher at Half Evil Comics, and as you indicated, most of Half Evil's business right now is on Kickstarter.
Mhm.
We are regularly running campaigns for my astral projection thriller, The Jump. We are regularly running campaigns for the Peacekeepers, which is our Fargo West crime drama, which we're going to talk about today. But also, we have another sci-fi joint called The Breach, which was really great. And we got a bunch of great stuff coming up. We are getting into the licensed property game. At San Diego Comic Con, we're going to be making a big announcement, kind of making a big splash with our first licensed property deal. That'll be a lot of fun. But we're also we're going to start publishing other people's work very soon and all that stuff. So follow the Half Evil Comics social media. Follow me at Rylend Grant, and a lot of big announcements coming up for Half Evil Comics in the next, I don't know, 3-4 months.
Oh no, congratulations on that. That is
Yeah,
so cool that you guys are expanding. That's great.
yeah.
All right, Rylan, let's just jump right into it. Let's go talk to Peacekeepers.
Yeah.
Now, issue one, your opening page, it reads, the events depicted in this book took place in northern Michigan in 2004. At the request of the survivors, the names have been changed out of respect for the dead. The rest has been told exactly as it occurred. I'm going to ask you, is this a nod to a certain movie, or a TV show, or?
Yeah. So my favorite movie of all time is Fargo, and Fargo
Mhm.
starts out with a similar warning, and it's very effective. I mean, I think here first things first is that it actually is inspired by true events. I read there was a bank robbery in northern Michigan that was very different from this.
Mhm.
But I became kind of really interested in it, intrigued by it, and started sort of combing through everything that was out there about it. And it was not as interesting as I wanted it to be, and I made it more
Yeah.
interesting. And it is unrecognizable now, but it is interesting where stories come from, And it's like, well, actually, as a writer, I would do this instead, and I would do this
Yes.
instead, and I would do this instead. But yeah, but I think I mean, I think right off the bat, I mean, as a writer, as a comic book creator, as a filmmaker, whatever, you are taking your audience on a journey, and that
Mm-hmm.
journey starts with the first frame. It starts with the first page, and you want to put them in a place. And a normal comic book, you open it up, and it's like I'm reading a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
If they open it up, and the first thing they see is a black page that says this is based on true events,
Yes.
uh, they it immediately grabs them. They're
Mm-hmm.
immediately taking it seriously in a way that maybe they wouldn't otherwise, and that is going to color everything that comes next. And so yeah, I'm trying to just grab a hold of them right off the bat, and have a little fun with them. And in the end, is it true or isn't it? I don't know that it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then I love it. Like you said, he grabs you from the first. I mean, after that page, it's like we just jump right into the action, and it's great. I love it. Um, I'm trying not to spoil too much because I want, for new listeners or if listeners are going, now I'm going, nah, I'm interested. I want to see what this is. I try not to. I don't want to spoil it too much because this is I've read the first four issues. I love it. Um, you've already talked about, Fargo. It's partly based on, some true events on Fargo. Um, that's and I know we already talked to. I'm going to ask you if you can maybe explain a little bit about the story, not too much, but because
yeah,
already,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So, the quick log line is basically all hell breaks loose in a quaint northern Michigan town when a
mhm,
team of in over their heads bank robbers kills a beloved sheriff's deputy. In a small town with big secrets, local detective Richard
yes,
Holton races to peel back the layers of a depraved down home conspiracy before the bungling federal agents assigned to the case send everyone involved to ground. So that is the by the book
uh-huh.
log line. But yeah, that's what happens. Is you have this small northern Michigan community where everybody knows everybody and everybody
Yes,
knows everybody's business,
hmm,
and then this horrific crime happens. There are bank robberies kind of like happening all over northern Michigan,
hmm,
and they think it's not going to hit their town, and then it hits their town, and when it hits their town, a sheriff's deputy who everybody loves ends up dead. And then it's like a stone in a pond. It
hmm,
sends ripples
yes,
everywhere. And
hmm,
so this is a really tight knit community. And when something like this happens, it sends shockwaves. And then it turns out that, well, there were people in town who were involved.
hmm,
And that is how the thing starts to unravel. And then uh the people who committed the murder go on the run,
yes,
and it becomes a manhunt, and a manhunt is not a local thing inherently. It is a national thing.
hmm,
The FBI shows up, the U.S. Marshals show up, and it becomes this thing where, well, local detectives operate a certain way,
yes,
and a big time U.S. Marshal doing a manhunt is going to operate a different way, and how those things clash. And then what happens when, again, a town that is small and private and quaint gets invaded by the national media, and suddenly all eyes are on this town for God knows how long. I mean, we all turn on Nancy Grace any night of the week, right? And
that's
it's like, what is
true.
what is the national case that we're all looking at,
Yeah,
and whose window are we peeking into that night? These are all things that I kind of became obsessed with, and we have all been on the, oh, I'm sitting in my living room watching Nancy Grace peeking on these people, but what happens if we're with the people who are being peeked in on, right?
yes,
If we're in the town that's being invaded,
hmm,
how does that change things? And so these are things that I kind of became obsessed with, and it really came so. When right around the time I graduated college, my parents moved from. I grew up in Detroit,
hmm,
and very much an urban environment, and but right around the time I graduated college, they sort of packed up and they moved to Crossville, Tennessee, which is this tiny town in Tennessee. It is about halfway between Nashville and Knoxville in the mountains.
hmm,
It is, I believe, statistically the least diverse county in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Very small town and very different and very just different ways of thinking and different ways of
Yes.
operating and different values and a different way that police work is done and there's a mayor but there's a guy who's actually in charge and if
Mm-hmm.
you want anything done you go to him and he'll work through back channels to get you this and to get you that and I would go and visit and I was just fascinated that this place and this is in the United States but it was so
Yes.
different than the United States I was familiar with
Mm-hmm.
and it had its own politics and its own almost currency
Mm-hmm.
and everything and so it was not something that I had seen depicted in a very real way
Mm-hmm.
in a respectful and loving way on screen
Mm-hmm.
before and so I just decided to get into it and so in a way the Peacekeepers is a love letter to
Yes. Yeah.
small town life. It is also like an indictment of small town life in a really interesting way. I mean, and I think those things can coexist in a really interesting way.
Mm-hmm.
We ask some kind of big, hard questions about it. But again, it's all done with love and care and respect. And I mean, I think that it's funny because I wrote this. I wrote this a few years back,
Mm-hmm.
and the world we're a polarized society, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I mean we do have the intellectuals and the large urban centers, and we do have the people in the small town that their value system is different,
Mm-hmm.
and that is constantly at odds.
Yes.
And this is a very interesting examination of that, and but not in a patronizing way, and
Yes.
not in a way I think where we're taking sides or anything like that. I think everybody looks good and bad in the end, but we are having this conversation. I think that the world is having,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe in a less threatening way.
Yes. The other thing, but like you said, it's a love letter to small towns. The other thing and like you said, it's like your character, and I'm going to mention a couple of the characters, and you feel free to comment, but like your characters, like you have on one side, now correct me if I'm wrong, I think the cousins, Mark and Elliot,
Yeah,
and then on the other side you have Rick and Denny, their brothers.
yeah,
And the thing is that, you know, how you write these characters, um, because I'm gonna focus on Denny, Rick and Denny, because Rick
mhm,
seems like the beta male.
yeah,
He kind of he does his job. He's a police officer. He does his job, and that's all it is. Denny is also a police officer too. He, he he's basically the asshole that
mhm,
gets things done. But the thing is, but how you write them is like, it's like, it's not like, oh, I hate Denny. It's kind of like, well, you kind of see Denny's point of view at times. You kind of like him, but yeah, he kind of, I
yeah,
wouldn't do that. But like I said, you write these characters with so much, care that I'm also sympathizing with them. But it's like, oh no, but I got to remember Denny does kind of
yeah.
breaks the law. That's all, when things need to be done. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we all have each of us has Rick and Denny inside of us. Rick
Yes.
is Rick is logic and reason, and he is careful and he is measured and a little bit scared at times.
Yes.
And Denny is kind of that he's a swinging dick and he is swagger
Yeah.
and he is
Yeah.
unchecked aggression and he is kick the door
Hmm.
in first and ask questions later.
Hmm.
Um, we all have both of those things inside of us,
That's
and
true.
I think that I think being a man
Hmm.
here and now is about how we sort of negotiate and balance those things. I mean, we are. I mean, again, as a society, I don't want to get into politics because this
No,
book
no,
isn't
yeah.
about this. No, this book isn't about politics at all.
No,
So I don't
yeah.
want to scare anybody else off with it. But I think that this conversation we've been having, as a society, really is like, well, how do we balance those two
Yes.
things in our leader?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like who do we want to vote for, and what do we? And I think that in almost all cases, like maybe we've gone too far,
Yes.
out on a limb on both sides, and that this perfect balance doesn't exist. Um, and so, I mean, I think the book is really legislating that, is like, okay, well, these two, these two different kinds of man,
Yeah.
and how do we balance and negotiate between them? And then the irony ends up being that, like, without giving too much away, is that Rick has to go after the
Somebody.
criminals,
Yes.
and if he stays Rick, if he stays careful and measured, he's never going to catch
Yeah.
these guys. He has to become his brother
Mm-hmm.
in a very real way to catch, the bad guys. And that is really interesting to see how it goes right, how it goes wrong,
Mm-hmm.
where he still has to be him and where he has to be his brother and all of that stuff. And yeah,
Rylend, if you don't mind, I'm going to add in because like you said, it's like we both have Rick and Denny in us, also Mark and Elliot in us too.
mm-hmm.
But it's almost like the id and super, it's the id and super id, and you need that someone to
Yeah,
be in the balance. And the other person that I love that you have is, and I'm not going to try, it's FBI agent Alonzo Lewis.
yeah,
He seems to be that balance. He kind of goes, okay, because, and I love his character because he kind of reminds me of um, Vincent D'Onofrio's character in Law and Order Criminal Intent, Robert Gorin, where
okay,
he's kind of a little bit of eccentric, where you know, you know, um, Agent Lewis walks into the bank, he sees the crime scene and he goes, okay, he stands, okay, this is where the first guy, the bank robber, stood.
mm,
This is where the second, and he jumps on the bank teller's desk and he goes, this is where the other, and people are looking like, what are you doing? But
yeah,
in his mind, he's visualizing everything. And on the
yeah,
and on the flip side, for Agent Lewis, also what I love about him is he kind of reminds me of Gene Hackman's character, FBI agent Rupert Anderson from Mississippi Burning,
okay,
because he will because um in Mississippi, because he kind of tells the U.S. Marshals that they come in, the U.S. Marshals come in, they have their tanks and everything, and everything, but Agent Lewis is telling the U.S. Marshals, hey, I grew up in a small town.
yeah,
When I became a U.S. Federal FBI agent, I wanted to come back because I know how these people think. You
yeah,
try to go in with your suits and everything, you ain't getting nowhere with these people.
yeah,
And that was so cool. Like when we're talking about Denny and Rick and the two different sides,
yeah.
Officer Lewis seems to be that balance.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, and he's a balance in a number of ways, right? Where he is the intellectual and he is the swinging dick, but he's also
Yes.
this. But it is also this conversation about, it's about the intellectuals in DC versus
Hmm.
the small town people in this northern Michigan town. And this is the guy who has walked in. He's the day walker. He's Blade, right? He's he's
Yes.
he's he's walked in both worlds,
Yes.
and he's able to negotiate it. And it is this interesting thing where it's like, I don't think that the crime does not get solved unless he is there.
Yeah.
It's like he is not the person who he's not the lead investigator, but
Yes.
he is facilitating everything because he is the it's kind of like, okay, so you and I have this computer system, and
Yes.
we have this very dangerous weapon. Let's just say it's like a bomber or something
Hmm.
like that. And there is an entire science to getting our computer system to be able to communicate clearly and cleanly with the bomber, right? And if
Hmm.
that doesn't happen, then a whole lot can go wrong. And he is the conduit, right?
Yes.
He
Yes.
he is how these he is able to, he's almost the translator. He's the fixer. When the U.S. military goes into Yemen or whatever, like,
Yeah.
they don't know the area. They don't know how to negotiate things. They
Yeah.
don't know how to get things. They don't, and they need to hire a local somebody who
Hmm.
speaks both English and local languages, and knows who the chiefs are and knows who to
Hmm.
negotiate with and all those things. And he is very much that guy. Like he speaks small town. He speaks he speaks DC bureaucrat.
Yes. Hmm.
And yeah, and so I mean, you're painting an interesting picture here, where it's like the book is very much about these dichotomies and how these things get negotiated and navigated, and it's always and how hard it is to actually solve a crime
Hmm.
these days when it gets big and bad like this, because like
Yes.
there's so many egos involved and so much red tape to cut through, and so many things to translate and negotiate and all of those things. And
Hmm.
so this is a character piece. It is about these people, but it's also about that. It's about how we exist and communicate as a society. But sort of all through the lens of, okay, well, there was this crime and we have to get the bad guys and we have to take care of the people who were affected by it and all that stuff. We have to this town is kind of falling apart, and how do we rebuild it? How do we
Hmm.
start to heal? How do we do all these things?
That's right. I love it how you said that this is a character piece.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we start off with a big, bank robbery, crime, and everything, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and like I mentioned, it's kind of, I mean, I'm trying to, because we've talked about this, but it's almost like opening a Point Break, basically.
Yeah.
Two brothers come in, they need money, they have a side gig, which I think the side gig in the comic is pretty cool, but they come in and they just need money. But it's not, the focus is not that. The focus is on the characters. Like you said, it's all these subtle things. It's a character, and that's what I love about this series. It's a character study,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I love it. And also too, what I love, and Ron, like I said, we talked about this before. What I really love about this is also the character study. Also, there's in the small towns, there's, like you already said, there's secrets, but then also too, in with these small town secrets, there's also family secrets too. That's like,
Yeah.
holy cow, you know. And how I love it how you slowly, naturally unveil it,
Mm-hmm.
because it was like when I started to get to issue, then I think towards the end of issue three, it's like, oh wow, now I understand where a couple people came from, and and again, listener, I don't want to spoil it. This is so good. I
Yeah, I mean, it is one of my favorite things to do, and it's actually, I'm another one of my another book that I did is this it's a superhero noir called Banjax, and it was really well received. It came out years ago, but it was nominated for 4 Ringo Awards. We got nominated for Best Series alongside Bitterroot and Something's Killing the Children, and so good pedigree. And it took me a little while to get it back from the publisher, and so I am under the Half Evil Comics banner now, relaunching it. There's a new issue.
oh,
Um,
good. Okay.
yeah, and so that'll be out later this year. It's kind of the first time I'm talking about that publicly, so you're breaking a little news here.
Hmm.
But I'm doing that all by way of saying, so the first series of Banjax, it's a 4 issue thing, and
Hmm.
and it and it would have been easy to just do issue 5 and just continue the story and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. And I don't know. Some would say maybe I should have just done that. However, one of my favorite things to do was I took a character in that first series of Banjax,
Hmm.
who was always one of my favorite characters, who I thought was a little underserved, and she, I will give that hint, is that it's a woman.
Hmm.
Uh, um, Very interesting, very pivotal in the first series, but we didn't know much about her.
Hmm.
Um, and so as I'm writing these people, a lot of times I'm just saying like, okay, well, you know, how did she come to be? You
Hmm.
know? What were the dominoes that fell that turned her into her and led her here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when I sat down to write new Banjacks, that was what kept popping to the surface. Is like I want to know about her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started asking questions, and so what is coming now is what is going to be a 4-issue series about how this woman, it is almost a prequel,
Uh-huh.
how this woman ends up there, and it's really interesting. And it's very great. And so, I mean, here's the thing: is like I think that I mean, your listeners, read a lot of comic books.
Yes.
I read a lot of comic
Yes.
books, and too many of them. There's a lot of great stuff out there, but too
Yeah.
many of them are kind of disappointing, and too many of them get bogged down with plot. This
Mm-hmm.
happens, this happens, this happens, and there's not a lot of character stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes plot can reveal character, and it should, and you need good plot, and there's plenty of good plot in the Peacekeepers. There's this big crime, and there's this manhunt, and one thing leads to another, and eventually the crime gets solved in a big, bad, and interesting way, and there's a showdown, and
Mm-hmm.
all of the things that you want out of kind of like a badass action movie,
Yes.
like Fargo or No Country for Old Men. That's what we're channeling here. However, um it is this character piece, and it is this kind of like meditative exploration of how we negotiate who we are and how we become who we
Yes.
are. And so you have first and foremost, it's the study of these brothers, and well, okay, well, they're both they're both very dynamic in their own ways, but they're both very flawed in their own ways, and
Mm-hmm.
they're both carrying around all of this trauma, like 100-pound weights on their back, and they can't
Yes.
shed it. And it's just, we have the room here to get into that.
Yes.
And when you find out what it was and how they ended up where they were, and basically, without spoiling too much, is that dad was a very notorious criminal. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't find that out until later in the story, but it's like,
Yeah.
well, you have two cops. And with any cop, it's like, okay, well, why did they become, every cop has a story of how and why they became a cop.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and imagine growing up in this small town where, again, everybody's in your business and everybody loves
Mm-hmm.
to
Yes.
talk, and and so dad was a notorious criminal. And so their entire lives, these two boys, whenever they walked into a room, the record skipped proverbially, and everybody looked at them and everybody started whispering, and it's like, oh, it's the criminals' kids,
Yeah.
right?
That's yeah.
Yeah. And so that affects these two boys in very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And for one of them, it becomes anger.
Yes.
It becomes unchecked aggression.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Like, I am now big, I am strong,
Mm-hmm.
and when I walk into a room, if you got something to say, I'm going to ask you to say it to my face, and then I'm going to knock you the fuck out, right?
Mm-hmm.
With the other one, it becomes his whole life has been an apology. His whole life has been trying to
Yes.
make up for
Mm-hmm.
what dad did. He's a people pleaser. He is an apologist, a
Mm-hmm.
negotiator, all of those things. And you can see very clearly how each of those people grew out of the same events.
Yes.
But you can very clearly see why they became cops.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's like a fun irony in that. Is, okay, well, dad was a criminal, so like we're gonna spend our lives trying to catch criminals.
Yeah.
Uh, and then what happens after that is even more interesting. But again, we're not going to give away too much, right?
No. Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
So, all right. Now, now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think you planned this out for 6 issues. This Kickstarter that's going to be launching is issue 5.
yeah.
Um, I'm going to ask you this question we already talked about before the interview, but for listeners, you know, d- actually, I'm just going to say it. It's like you had the script ready, everything was completed right before the Kickstarter's launched, right? So you
Yeah,
already
yeah,
had that. That's great.
yeah, yeah. It's yeah. The series is done. The series is drawn. I was busy with film and TV stuff. Again, my day
What
job
your day job?
is
Yeah.
yeah. Day job is writing film and television, and write mostly action movies. For folks like J.J. Abrams and Ridley Scott and Justin Lin and John Woo, and
Mhm.
started channeling some of that there. I had 2 movies come out last year. I sold a TV show right before kind of the film and TV business took a big dump. So I thought, it looked like I was going to be running this TV show, and so
Mm-hmm.
obviously had a busy couple of years, and so yeah, release has been it takes a lot to do one of these, right? Flirted with some traditional publishing channels, but I've been there and done that, and the deals were never great.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten even worse recently.
Yeah.
um, and so you will see the Peacekeepers in a comic shop at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Once my publishing endeavor, Half Evil Comics, figures that out, we may partner with a current larger publisher
Yeah.
to
It's
have an
just
imprint. We may
yes.
do it on our own. But right now, where a creator can actually make some money and hold on to his or her rights and all of that stuff is the crowdfunding space. And it is, I mean, I used to say it was about half the business, but I think it's maybe two-thirds, three-quarters of the business now. And It's a really great place, and I think it is the future of comics, whether a lot of people want to admit it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, and I think at the very least there's a huge audience there. There
Yes.
is an audience that they buy all of their comics in the comic shop, and there's an audience where they buy most of their comics on crowdfunding platforms. And
Yes.
there is a crossover,
Mm-hmm.
but not nearly as much as you think. And so, as a creator, if you are not servicing both audiences, then you're leaving money on the table.
Mm-hmm.
You are leaving exposure on the table.
Mm-hmm.
You are alienating and ignoring a
Mm-hmm.
huge part of the fan base right now. So yeah, with Half Evil Comics, our stuff starts on the crowdfunding platforms. It is a good way to remain whole, to actually make a bunch of cash, and
Yes.
then you go into the comic shops, and it is very hard to make any money as a creator putting comics in comic shops right now, which is why the comic business is in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And until we figure that out, there's going to be more trouble. So
I just want to comment for Kickstarters, um, and again, I'm not knocking down writers and artists that have that do most of the work with a big two or image or not. I'm not. The other thing I like about Kickstarters is that, you know, um, this is your guy's passion project.
yeah,
That you can really let things breathe. It's a character, like you said, it's a character study. And that's what I love. And you get time to go, okay, wait a minute, do I want Denny to do this or no? You can think about it a little bit more, let it breathe, you know, or like and I've mentioned this before in previous interviews that you can let the scene breathe a little for at least 3 to 4
yeah.
pages, and it's great. I
It's
love.
a yeah, it's a way to do great art because you don't have to fit it into, a box like
Yeah.
they want you to. I mean, for years, in the comic book business, I mean, there were like five publishers you could go to,
Yeah.
and all of those publishers were run by, a white guy in his 50s. And if one of those five white guys in their 50s didn't give you permission to do your book, you didn't get to do your book.
Yeah.
Well, that's just not the case anymore.
Yes.
Anybody and everybody can do their book, and no matter what kind of book you want to do, and no matter what kind of story you tell,
Hmm.
what kind of audience you want to target, you're going to find supporters for it, enthusiastic supporters, and so that's just so interesting, and so we're seeing a real, like, boom in ideas and boom in approaches,
Yes.
and it's a really great, even though, I don't know, you hop on one of the comic sites, and it's like it feels like it's Armageddon, but it's really this renaissance
Hmm.
of ideas in the comic book business. And you just look at, for the longest time, I mean, for decades, about 80% of the population, they went into a comic shop and they did not see themselves on the shelves, and
Yes.
and
Hmm.
and that was a real problem. And now, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter who you want to be, you can hop on a Kickstarter and you will see yourself in not one thing, but five, six, 10 things, whatever.
Hmm.
And you don't need permission to tell your story anymore. So you tell it and you put it out there, and you'll find your people. And I think that's amazing. I think that's a gift. And I mean, I came from the film business where, I mean, my problem with the film business was that, what you can do in the film business, that's the ultimate gatekeeping business. And I was writing for about 12 years at that point, but what they would let me do, I could probably fit on a postage stamp.
Hmm.
They're basically doing five different kinds of movies. You got to write them a certain way, and
Yeah. Hmm.
I got good at doing that, but I didn't really want to do that anymore. And so I got into the comics business because, in comics, particularly now, and increasingly so, you can tell any kind of story you want to tell, and any way you want to tell it, as long as it is good.
Yes.
There will be people like you who get excited about it and tell all their friends about it, and
Hmm.
and and you will find an audience, and people will embrace it, and people will love you for it, because you took the chances.
Yes.
Um, so yeah.
I'm gonna start slowly wrapping things up. Do you want to give a shout out to your creative team, especially your artists? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Peacekeepers is drawn by Davi Leon Diaz, who is a Brazilian artist. Great guy. He drew most of the run of my first book, Aberrant. Um, and we won a Ringo Award for that one,
Hmm.
nominated for a couple others. And yeah, so Davi's a great guy, and he's drawn the hell out of this book. It is colored by Awan Joko Triono,
Hmm.
who is an Indonesian cat, who's colored a ton of stuff for me. I should mention, I guess Davi and Awan also drew my Source Point Press book, Suicide Jockeys. So these are people I've worked with
Hmm.
forever. HD is a letterer from the UK who has, I think he's lettered everything that I've put out.
Hmm.
And is just such a great guy, and so additive to everything. And so yeah, it is an old team.
Hmm.
We are tried and true. We've done, I don't know how many books the three of us have done together now. Like, it might be close to 20 comic book issues that we've put out together. Might even be more than that. I might be underselling that. But yeah, and those books have, I don't know, like 6 Ringo Award nominations and a win, and so it's a good team. You
Yes.
were in great hands, and
Yes.
we communicate well, and there's I think some high level storytelling going on, and that is not just me tooting my own horn. It's really that I've come to count on these guys and
Hmm.
to elevate what I do, and they're doing it in a very real way, I think.
I just want to touch on some of the Kickstarter things. What are some of the reward tiers?
Yeah, I mean, so it's the standard stuff. I mean,
Hmm.
to a degree, where we have 4 variant covers, and this is the Peacekeepers is kind of a love letter to crime dramas.
Yes. Hmm.
Again, we talked about Fargo, No Country for Old Men, but also like case of season police dramas like True Detective and The Wire. I'm a big Elmore Leonard novel guy, but also like comic masterpieces like Criminal and 100 Bullets. So our variant covers. We have a Pulp Fiction variant cover, which is amazing, and we have a Reservoir Dogs variant cover, which I think are both going to be very popular. So for the first campaign, we did a Heat variant cover and a Fargo variant cover, and these are kind of in that vein where they're these 3 tier covers that are pretty beautiful and pretty
Hmm.
awesome. So I think people will love that. Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing: is like, so there is the standard stuff, but
Yes.
when you come to a Half Evil Comics Kickstarter, um, we step our game up. So we have a lot of original art tiers. You can get original art from the book, which is great, but also Davi and Awan are available for commissions. So no matter what you want drawn, if you want a commission of your wife punching your neighbor or whatever, we'll do that for you. It is an anything goes sort of thing. But people have had us draw. That we did a logo for a law firm. Uh, um,
Wow.
we've done like Christmas cards for people.
It's nice.
We have had, we had a couple come in and be like, we need something for our wedding invitation. We want you to draw us into the Back to the Future poster. And we did that. Um, yeah. So we have these, award nominated artists at your disposal, and you can come in and where you normally wouldn't be able to kind of get a commission with them, you can get that here. We can draw you into the book. You'll
Mm-hmm.
actually become a character in the book, and we can put you in the background. We can make
Mm-hmm.
you a supporting character. We actually get lines. There's a tier where we will do an original story based on you, and those have always been fun. We've had probably 5 or 6 people take us up on that over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it is an original story that takes place in the world of the Peacekeepers, starring you. And it's not a cookie cutter thing that exists. It
Yes.
is, we start from scratch and we build it with you. The last guy that did it, I sat down with him and I was just like, hey, we can go anywhere with this. Like, what is important to you? And he's like, I don't, there aren't a ton of things that are important to me, but the thing you need to know about me is that I love my dog more than anything. My dog Reggie he's great. He's the love of my life, and
Mm-hmm.
so I built a story with this gentleman from the ground up
Mm-hmm.
about he and his dog Reggie, and it was in the world of the Peacekeepers, and the idea was that he was this high level dog trainer that could train the dog to steal things, and so a character from the Peacekeeper story hires him
Mm-hmm.
to send his dog in to go steal this thing that can't be stolen, and it was fun and it was great and it was awesome. And so yeah, there's that. Another, I guess, another reward that is pretty popular is you can have a one-on-one conference with me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a Skype session, and those are good. And if you want to, I've worked in, I've written in Hollywood for, 15 plus years now,
Mm-hmm.
film, TV, obviously done comic books for a really long time, and so those sessions are usually great. It's like, how do I break into the industry? Like, can I run this
Yeah.
pitch by you? Can I have some advice on this? And yeah, those have always been really popular. I mean, whenever there's kind of like a charity thing for the comics business,
Yes.
I'll throw a couple of those out, and those are usually very popular. And yeah, have helped just over the years. A lot of people kind of get started in this business. One of the things that Half Evil Comics is pretty passionate about is kind of educating people and inspiring people to do this.
Mm-hmm.
It has never been more possible for you to do your own book, and so if you want to talk about doing your own book and get started, this is a pretty good way to do it. Back the campaign, get a couple of great books, and then let's sit down for an hour and talk about you breaking in.
So cool.
Yeah,
Rylend, I'm sorry. I'm one last question because I'm going to wrap this up. Sorry, I kind
yeah,
of
no,
told you
keep
we're
it
going to
coming.
be, but all right.
Yeah, no
Any
worries.
closing words to our listeners?
Well, the Peacekeepers campaign kicks off on May 12th. It is very important that we get backers on those first 2 days. That kind of drives the whole algorithm.
Yes.
So show up and show up early and show up forcefully and tell your friends. It is a great book. It is a passion project. Yeah, and if you like, films like Fargo or No Country for Old Men, if you dig case of season police dramas like True Detective or The Wire, if you're a big crime novel guy, Elmore Leonard, that sort of thing. If you dug 100 Bullets or Criminal in the comic space, you're going to love this book. It's just really good. And so, yeah, show up, take a look at it. Plenty of great comic book business for you to do. I mean, the other thing is every Kickstarter becomes a kind of Half Evil Comics pop-up shop. So if you missed out on the Jump, if you missed out on our Ringo Award-winning kind of superhero books, Aberrant or
Mm-hmm.
Banjax, you can get signed copies there. The whole Half Evil library is available. So, good. Come check out our other wares also, I guess.
Rylend, mahalo. Thank you in Hawaiian. Thank you for giving me another opportunity to interview you. Like I said, I'm excited. I cannot wait to back this, you know. So and I wish you all the success, with this kicks actually with the whole series, the Peacekeepers. Just I just wish you all the success. And if you are a new comic book reader or lifelong comic book reader, as Rylend and I kept talking about this, if you love the movie Fargo, or Ed Brubaker's Criminal, if you love great character studies, the Peacekeepers is the perfect book for this. It is. So if you guys get a chance, please back this campaign. Again, it starts on May 12th and ends on June 5th. I want to thank Drew, the co-host of Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys. Aloha.
They rolled in like thunder off the bay. 4 strangers, cold eyes and no names. Said it was just a job, in and out. But the plan went south with a single shout. A badge hit the ground, the town lost its sun, and the peace they knew came undone. Now the line between law and sin is thinner than it's ever been. 'Cause when the smoke clears and the sirens fade, there's a price for every mess we made. You can run through snow, you can hide in the green, but no one walks away clean. No one walks away clean. Detective Holton's got that 1,000-yard stare. Knows the truth ain't always fair. There's rock beneath these sleepy trees and blood beneath the autumn leaves. The feds rolled up with their suits and pride, but they don't see what's rolling inside. This ain't just a case, it's a reckoning, and justice here's got barbed wire wings. 'Cause when the dust settles and the lies run dry, the guilty ain't always the ones who die. You can burn the maps, you can scrub the scene, but no one walks away clean. No one walks away clean. It's a town built on secrets, built on scars, with truth buried deep in old junkyard cars. And the more you dig, the worse it stings, 'cause even angels here got dirty wings. Now the snow keeps falling, covers the trail, but time don't forget and fate don't fail. And the mirrors crack, you'll see what I mean. No one walks away clean. No one walks away clean. Yeah, not from this damn scene. So raise a glass for the peace we keep, and say a prayer for the ones who sleep. In a town where the devil wears green, no one walks away